How do you feel about them?
I mean, I don't really. I feel like the Knicks they haven't improved much from last year, to be honest with you. And they went pretty far last year. They made the conference finals, but at the end of the day, I feel like it's kind of reminds me of like the Phillies a little bit. Like running it back, running it back. Obviously, this is a bit of a different circumstance, but I just don't know that they found that piece yet, in my opinion. And maybe they proved me wrong. I love Brunson. I think he's a hooper. Villanova alum. I would have to disagree with you on the Karl Anthony Towns standpoint. I think Karl Anthony Towns is a really really good player. I think he's one of the more versatile centers in the league, and on any given night he can go out there and score 40. I really really like Mikal Bridges. Think he's a great player. And then other than that, I mean the Jeremy Shohan signing it doesn't really hedge the needle for me at all, to be honest with you. And I don't know. I mean it's more depth. And then touching on the Jose Alvarado um acquisition, I just feel like he's not going out there and putting up 26 against anybody else on a daily basis. Like that game last night was just terrible. It was brutal. Um I think I turned it off at the end of the first quarter. And like I said, the Sixers are just very short on defense. And a guy like Jose Alvarado, he's sneaky. He's one of them guys that'll come up from behind you and get a steal. And I just feel like, with certain teams, there's different playing styles, and you go up against a team like Cleveland or even Boston, that's not going to slide. So I feel like they're still missing that piece.
No, yeah, I think I like you bring up the point about the Knicks being the Phillies. I think it's a perfect comparison because it's like the only difference they probably have is they actually had the willingness to change their head coach. So, but Mike Brown's a good head coach, but you're not going to change the issues of that what you already have. Brunson, he's bound to miss a few games. Why I say Karl Anthony Towns is overrated, I think he can give you good points on a night to night basis, but I think he's a very massive defensive liability anymore. I think he can't guard 1 to 5, and sometimes I think it's his inconsistencies why I have him overrated because they gave up a decent amount to get him, and yes, he's been good for spurts of a time, but I think the Pacers exposed him a lot in that playoff series last year, and I think another thing, he's just a guy that comes up small in the playoffs. Why do you think the Timberwolves were willing to trade him? He was their first overall pick, 2015. It was like that Anthony Edwards took over as the franchise guy, and he kind of just became second fiddle. And then it was to the point where Rudy Gobert sometimes offered more than Karl Anthony Towns did when in a playoff series. And I just think at the end of the day, with him and stuff like that, yes, he can be good at sometimes, but then also he's a huge liability on the defensive end. And then when you can figure him out offensively, he's not making a 3 point shot. He makes no impact in the paint, and he's the type of guy he's asking for a foul. He's flopping here, flopping there, and it's like what when you get to that point of the game with him, he is all out of sorts and is just asking for stuff and is not going to get it. And that's where teams are trying to get him, and more common than not, they are able to get it to. But I think in the Knicks sense, I think uh, highest expectation for them is a second round. I think there's teams better than them that could knock them out in the second round of the playoffs and get to the conference finals. If they have to play the Pistons, I think the Pistons would easily be able to expose their weaknesses, and they took them to the limit last year with a much worse team and much not as it's still a similar team with the Pistons, but this team's much improved, a lot more experience, and Cade Cunningham would be running circles on that team, I think. So but before we touch on more of the bigger things, you mentioned the Sixers a little bit there. Since I did a Sixers video last week, I'll give you a little bit of opportunity to see how you're feeling about the Sixers. Especially before I did that video, they had some 3 games coming up. They only won one of them, so now they finished at the All Star break with a 30-24 record. How are you feeling about the Sixers at the All Star break?
So for a while during this West road trip, I was very locked in. We started off great. We took down Golden State, took down a couple other teams, took down Phoenix, and I was like, okay, we may get off of this road trip one loss, maybe none. And then we come up against Portland, and that game was just, again, defensive liability. I mean, Portland couldn't miss that night. I mean, it was what it was. But I feel like there's nights where the Sixers can go out there and they can look like championship contenders, and then there's nights where I feel like they're not even mentally there, and I I don't know who to blame at this point. I want to blame coaching. I want to blame, the inconsistency of Joel Embiid. Although he's having a great season when he is on the court this year, I just feel like it's weird because he'll go from not playing back to backs to I'm not going to play this game and actually might be out the next game too. So it's random. He'll play his spurt of games and it's like, okay, I played 5 of the last 7 games. Now I need 3 games off. It's just, I know, I guess it's injury management, but at this point, it's just a liability. No matter how good he's playing.